She was the great-granddaughter of Genghis Khan, a princess of the most powerful empire on earth, and she had just one rule for any man who wanted to marry her. You have to pin her in a wrestling match. The wager? 100 of your best horses. One by one, princes, champions, and the strongest men in Asia stepped into the ring, and one by one, she defeated them all. She won 10,000 horses, amassing a fortune and a legend, but this was never about sport. This was a secret war for control, a war fought not with armies, but with wit and will. This is the true story of Princess Khutulun. Our story begins in the late 13th century. The Mongol Empire, forged by Genghis Khan, was tearing itself apart in a brutal civil war. In the west, Khutulun's father, Khaidu Khan, ruled a vast khanate. His greatest rival was his own cousin, Kublai Khan, who sat on the throne in China. This was the world of conflict Khutulun was born into. While Khutulun had 14 brothers, she was her father's favorite, and she was different. She rejected the traditional role of a noblewoman. Instead, she demanded to be trained as a warrior. She mastered the composite bow, became an unparalleled horsewoman, and most of all, she excelled at buch, the traditional and brutal wrestling style of the steppes. She wasn't just being trained, she was being sharpened into her father's most lethal blade. As she came of age, Khutulun faced her greatest threat, not an enemy soldier, but political destiny. She was to be married off to secure an alliance, but she would not be a bargaining chip. So, she created her own defense. She declared that any man who wished for her hand must defeat her in a wrestling match. The price of entry was 100 horses. The news spread like wildfire across the Silk Road. The chance to marry a descendant of Genghis Khan brought a stream of the proud, the strong, and the arrogant, and one by one this princess threw them to the ground. Her legend grew with every victory. She won 10,000 horses. But this was the genius of her plan. By remaining unmarried, she made herself politically untouchable. No rival clan could claim her father's throne through her. She had built an independent empire of wealth and influence, answerable to no man. And she proved her worth far beyond the ring. The Venetian explorer Marco Polo wrote that she would make a dash at the enemy and seize a man as deftly as a hawk pounces on a bird. She was a terror on the battlefield. More importantly, she became her father's chief strategist. He trusted her mind more than any of his sons. But this power came at a cost. Her brothers watched, seething, as their sister became the true power behind the throne. 1301. Unthinkable happened. Khaidu Khan was killed in battle. With his dying breath, he named his successor. It was not one of his 14 sons. It was Khutulun. But the Mongol nobility was not ready for a queen. Her brothers led the revolt against her, backed by centuries of tradition. The whispers that had followed her for years now became weapons. They launched a smear campaign, using the most vile accusations to destroy her legitimacy and break her father's will. Khutulun stood at a precipice. She could draw her sword, rally her supporters, and plunge her father's kingdom into a bloody civil war. Or she could make the ultimate sacrifice. To save her father's legacy from being torn apart, she made her final and most powerful move. She surrendered. She agreed to a political marriage, chosen not by combat, but by cold pragmatism. She gave up her claim to the throne so her brother Dua could rule. The undefeated champion was finally beaten, not by a man's strength, but by the weight of an empire that could not accept hers. Khutulun died a few years later, around 1306. She never became the great Khan. But her story refused to die. It was preserved by Marco Polo, immortalized in his travels. She was a paradox, a princess who was a champion wrestler, a woman who used her body to achieve political independence, an heir who sacrificed her throne for peace. Khutulun's legacy is not one of a ruler who reigned for decades. It is the legacy of potential, a reminder of the brilliant, capable leaders that history almost forgot. She proved that true power isn't always about holding the crown. Sometimes it's about having the courage to grasp for it and the strength to let it go for a greater cause.